I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay. Your former FedEx. Okay, he moved up, they moved up.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Introduce myself first. My name is Stan McKinney. I'm the branch manager for SunTrust Bank, the Brinkley Plaza location, located right at 80 Monroe, right at Main and Monroe, downtown. To kind of give you a quick briefing on myself, I'm a native Memphian, born and raised here, University of Memphis graduate. I've been in banking in the financial service arena for the last 15 years. Member Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Brother Ron. Also, I have a wife, been married for 14 years now, and also 2 small children, 12 and 8. Okay, so I want to introduce our panelists at this point. To your far right is Ms. Miriam Brewer. Miriam Brewer, CFE, is the Senior Director of Education and Diversity for the International Franchise Association. In this role, she leads IFA's efforts to increase the number of minorities and women in franchising as part of a new and emerging market and in the area of next-gen students in franchising. Brewer works hand-in-hand with members of Congress, mayors, and other stakeholders by coordinating and delivering educational programs and cultivating relationships in major cities across the U.S. She staffs the IFA Diversity Institute Board. Miriam Brewer. Okay. You can clap. It's okay. You can clap. We have a small group. It's okay. Still clap. Okay. Next, we have Edith Kelly Green. Kelly Green is a partner with the KGR Group, which is the largest Lenny Sub Shop franchisee, and serves on the board of directors and corporate governance and audit committees for Applied Industrial Technologies, Inc. She had a distinguished career for more than 25 years at FedEx, holding positions in accounting, finance, operations, and ultimately serving for more than a decade as VP and Chief Sourcing Officer. Kelly Green has also held senior executive positions at Dallas-based Aero Exchange Limited. Okay, welcome Edith Kelly Green, please. All right. And we also have Mr. Ron Willis. Ron Willis is a select agent for State Farm Insurance, where he began he's been employed since 2002. Before that, Mr. Willis was also employed with the Memphis Police Department from 1985 until 2002. If you could please welcome Mr. Ron Willis. All right. So our session, want to own your own business and consider franchising. Okay? And we'll just kind of start with some brief questions, if you don't mind. And how much startup investments is usually required for a franchise or franchising per se? And if you don't mind, Ms. Brewer, I'd like to start that question with you. Could you give us a little insight on that topic, please?
Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. We like to say in franchising that franchises come in all size, shapes, and investment ranges. So anywhere from $10,000 to $10 million. So there's a franchise for you. So I think when you are thinking about different concepts, you need to find one that you're going to be comfortable with the investment range, and also think about how long you want to be in the system. But the short answer really is that it comes in all size, shapes, and investment ranges.
All right. And Ms. Kelly Green, insight on that topic, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I could talk probably specifically about Lenny's Subs. Is everybody here familiar with Lenny's Subs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did you bring some?
Why didn't I bring some? It's late in the day, but I did have a hot dog before I came here. I went. But speaking specifically for Lenny's, from my perspective with Lenny's, you do have the franchise fee that has to be paid, but in the case of a franchise like Lenny's that has an infrastructure, you're really talking $200,000 to $300,000 to get in that business if you're starting one from scratch. If you're buying one from someone, perhaps it could be less than that, depending on what the performance of that location is. But when you think about it, there's a franchise fee, but there is also a building that you're purchasing. There are assets that you're going to have to come up with. There's working capital that you're going to have. So not that you have to have all that money on the front end. You may be able to get a loan. You got SunTrust right over here. You may have family that you may be able to get a loan from. So you may not personally have to come up with that money, but you need to be prepared. You need to have an idea of how much you're talking about. If you have $25,000, that might get you in, but you may not be able to generate a positive cash flow that first year to pay your bills, in which case you may have to have other money, savings or whatever, to fall back on.
Okay, good. Any questions in regards to that? Anyone? Okay. And Mr. Willis, I've got this question in your direction here. I guess, what were some of the deciding factors that you personally used to choose your business franchise?
It's a long story. All right.
We have time.
All right. As he said, I was on the police department, and that was back in the late 90s. And we were going through some things similar to what they're going through now, but their case worse than our case. We had gotten to a point to where you couldn't get promoted, couldn't make any more money. The city gives you a raise, they raise your benefit, so you're right back in the same boat. And I got frustrated and decided it was time for me to leave. And I wanted to, I felt that the police department was safe. I always have a job with the police department because crime is not going anywhere. And I was right on that. But I wanted to find somewhere else that I felt I had longevity. And a buddy of mine had already left the police department to start State Farm Agency a couple of years prior to me thinking about it. So I had that in the back of my mind. And I also had some federal jobs in place that I wanted to do. But the thing, it was interesting, and I just tell you, it was divine intervention that I ended up at State Farm, because I was trying to actually go to the federal branch and use my law enforcement. But I ended up falling into a place where the State Farm agent's offer came my way. I was looking for it at one time, the timing wasn't right. And when I decided to do the federal work, the agency opportunity just kind of fell in my lap. But to answer your question, I saw the longevity. I saw the untapped opportunities for income. And I liked the idea of being able to create my own pathway. I could decide to design and make as much as I want to make or as little as I can make based on my efforts. So that was my deciding factor, kind of putting my financial future in my hands and not in government.
Good. And Ms. Kelly Green, same question.
Repeat the question. Why did I get?
What were some of the deciding factors that helped you choose Lenny's for your...
Well, my situation was entirely different. I retired from FedEx in 2003, I believe, and I retired to do nothing. I was not looking for a job or another career, and my daughter was in school at Rhodes College and ate at the Lenny's on Poplar across from the library all the time and would rant and rave about how good the sandwiches are. I had never had one. But I got into it because I was looking to create a legacy for my family. I wanted to create something that if my kids could work in and could own their own business. I do believe that owning your own business is a way to create wealth, and I think for us as people, creating wealth is terribly important. I mean, we can work, we can get a salary, but generally we spend the salary and we don't have a whole lot left. So I was investing in something that I thought would create a legacy for my family. My son also went to Florida A&M, and at Florida A&M, when they graduated from there, he had graduated with an MBA. they want to work a year and then they want to be CEO of the company. So when he came out, he never really wanted to work for anyone, although he worked for ServiceMaster. I made him do that for a year. But he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He still is an entrepreneur. But I think, as Ron says here, there's nothing like working for yourself because you control how much money you make. You have to make the decisions. You have to put in the time. If you don't put in the time, you control how little money you make.
Absolutely.
But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And having worked for FedEx for 25 years before doing that, I knew how to run a good business. I knew how FedEx is a very well-run business, in my opinion. I knew the people side, the profit side. I knew the customer side. And even though this pales in comparison to the FedEx giant, it's the same thing. How do you run a good business? You take care of your people. People got to take care of your customers, and the customers will keep coming back and generate the profits that you need to stay in business.
Good.
And can I
Sure,
say
yes, ma'am.
something about, because I think Edith touched on something about creating a legacy. And as people of color, we really do have to think about creating a legacy for our family. You know, in some instances, we're taking steps backwards in terms of generational wealth, where we're creating generational debt. And so we need to start thinking about how we can develop generational wealth and something that you can pass on to your children, because there are, in some cases, I don't want to overgeneralize, kids are coming out of school $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in debt and don't have a job. So if for no other reason, you may want to secure a franchise to make sure that they're going to have a job. But you really do need to start thinking about generational wealth.
Very good. And I just have a question also. Now, with a franchise opportunity, what would be, I guess, the biggest distinguishing factor with someone that wants to be their own boss, run their own business, with going with a franchise as opposed to starting from scratch, so to speak?
Okay. And I'll take a stab at that.
Sure.
In franchising, we like to say that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And by far, the two things that I look at that make franchising very attractive is that the system is already in place. You are not having to recreate the system. It's been tried and true. So, you know, by far, and with most of it comes with brand or name recognition. I was talking to Edith, and you know, she asked me when did I come in, and I for a minute I had to think, because I came in from Florida on yesterday, but I work in D.C., I live in Maryland, but I haven't been in my house, well, I haven't been in my office since last Friday, so I've been on the road constantly. And so when I travel, yeah, I'm staying at a hotel that I can get reward points, so that when I'm able to take a vacation, I'm using my reward points. So again, brand recognition, focusing on the system. And I like to say the system is an acronym, even though most people don't think of it as an acronym. But if you look at the letters in the word system, SYSTEM, that stands for save yourself significant time, energy, and money. And that's what a system does for you. If you are in business, you know, independent business, it's up to you to figure out, you know, the different processes. With the franchise, you can go to your franchisor to get direction. You can talk to fellow franchisees. They've been there, they've done that. Whereas if you, and you know, again, nothing against being in business independent, but there is a level of support and training that you get with franchising. Franchisors know first and foremost that in order for them to be successful, you as a franchisee has to be successful. So one can't do without the other. So if you're not doing well, then the franchisor is not going to do well. So, you know, by far having the system, brand recognition, training and support, and when you are doing your due diligence and you're talking to a franchisor and you're asking about what training and support they provide, and if they say that they don't, then, I'm not going to say you should walk away. I'm going to say you should run away, because they're telling you before you sign on the dotted line they're not going to support you. And I would like to say that IFA, being the trade association that represents franchising, none of our members would ever do that, but we do. They do provide the training and support. So again, there is a group of people that stand behind you as a franchisee that you would not have if you went it alone.
Good. Any additional questions in regards to that? Anyone?
Let me add one thing to
sure.
her statement. And here's just to back up what she's saying. I'm going to start something and you guys finish it, like a good neighbor. I didn't pay a dime for that. See, they market that. All I have to do is use it. And that's the benefit of being with a company with an established name. It gets me into places, and then I have to use Ron Willis to distinguish myself from the other State Farm agencies. But the groundwork has been done. The State Farm name opened doors for me, get me into place, and it provides me instant credibility. If I was Ron Willis Insurance Agency, I would have to go through this mirror of batteries of challenges to try to prove how competent I am and what a great business person. But now I could just flip up a report and show we Fortune 50 on the Fortune 5, we're in the top 50 on the Fortune 500 list. So that's the benefit of having a brand behind you. Save you some dollars on marketing.
Okay, good. Now, since there is, with the franchise, financial obligations on the front end, more than likely from the consumer, the person that's looking to venture out, how would that person then know that the company they're looking at, whether it's a Lenny's or a State Farm or any other additional companies, how financially strong that company would be, that their dollars would be in a safe or a good place, if you will?
Well, one of the things that you will, when you're doing your due diligence, and once a franchisor finds that you're serious about the concept, you're going to get what's called a franchise disclosure document. And while it may put you asleep because it is very lengthy, there are 23 items included in the franchise disclosure document, and it really can tell you, I don't want to say everything, but pretty much everything that you need to know about the franchise company in terms of, the leadership, how long the concept has been in business, the background of the leaders, financials, and how strong they are. It will also have information in terms of if there is any pending litigation. So that franchise disclosure document with those 23 items in there tells you everything, and you can find most of the answers that you need. I would encourage you that when you are working with the franchise development people, that you ask questions and ask questions and ask more questions. But that information, how solid it is in the FDD.
If I could add some things to that, too. I think you will take Lenny's again. There are franchises that probably aren't dependent on where they're located, but location. There's some things that you also have to decide once you determine that the franchisor, that's a solid organization. But then the next step is, am I going to open a restaurant or a Lenny's or McDonald's or whatever it is? Make sure you're looking at things like, where is it located? If you're purchasing one, you have from someone, you'll have that financial information from them. And so there are a lot of things you need to look at, but I would just point out two: location. But secondly, your internal, be introspective. I mean, you can see a place, or in this FDD, the franchise disclosure document, I think they'll give you the average sales average for all the franchisees. And do they give you average profitability too? I haven't read on But they'll give you a lot of financial information, and you can look at that and say, oh, this is great. We're going to have $1 million in sales. So the average is $1 million. The average is $500,000. But someone is working very hard to bring those sales in. And once you get a customer in the door, and I know Miriam said, well, you work for yourself, but you work for your customer. Because without customers, you're not going to have any sales. So yes, you have your own freedom, but that freedom is within limitations if you want to make the money that you think you want to make. We all go into this saying, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to make a bunch of money. But it does take a lot of work and a lot of discipline to do it, even though you've got structure and training. In my perspective, you've got to make sure you're ready to commit to what it takes to own your own business. You'll work harder than you worked at FedEx or IP or wherever. I think you will, if you want to do it right and if you want to optimize your earnings. So those are two things I would add that are also critically important to whether you're going to be successful in owning a franchise or any business for that matter.
And just one more thing, and I'll get to Ron. When you are doing your due diligence and you are in the FDD as the names of current franchisors and those who have exited the system, you would be encouraged to call them to ask questions. And never let the franchisor cherry pick and say, oh, call Bill Smith, call Janice White, call blah, blah, blah. Because, of course, they're going to pick out the ones that are right.
Absolutely.
Only let them tell you which ones. If you say to them, I'm trying to find someone who is in a city that kind of mirrors Memphis, that has similar demographics, then they can tell you then. But when you're doing the calls, you do need to find out, okay, what city it mirrors Memphis's demographics, and talk to them and talk to multiple people. Ask questions such as, if you had it to do over again, would you do this again? Do you feel supported by the franchisor? And if not, most of the time, the biggest mistake people make when they're doing their franchise, when they're doing their due diligence, is calling and asking a franchisee, well, how much money did you make? Most of us, if somebody asks me, well, Miriam, how much money do you make? I'm going to pad that a little bit. And then if you ask how much money, then you also need to know, did they run additional business expenses through their business? Because that could make a difference as well. But, doing the due diligence and asking intelligent questions to the franchisees is going to be very key.
The only thing I add, one, I would say, look at the leadership turnover. If you got a lot of turnover in your franchise leadership, you might want to look at that very closely. And the deciding factor for me was State Farm is a mutual company. Being a mutual company, we are owned by the customers. So whatever we do, it's going to be in the best interest of the customers. I don't want to be with a company that had a board of directors, because a board of directors make decisions based on what the numbers say and what's good for the numbers. Now, we do that too, but we're not forced or pressured to have to make decisions because it's customer-owned and not owned by a group of guys in suits and just looking at numbers. So that was a very big thing for me.
Anyone have any additional questions?
She mentioned location, and I've always felt like location is the main key, okay? But also with the location, in the area that you live in, whose face do you want to see? Ethnic-wise, I don't know, family-wise, history-wise, just whose face do they want to see? I live in a small town. And in that small town, the businesses that I've seen come and go, mostly go, were either in a bad location or they were black-owned businesses. Is that something we should take into consideration as black people, franchise, period?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought, I think all of us got something to say on that. I'm glad you brought that point up, because I can tell you this. Just because you can do finger waves or whatever they're doing the latest thing as a beautician, does not mean that you can run a beauty shop. those two different things. And I think we get that confused because you're good at a craft. You think, now I need my own whatever it is. But you have to understand business. And a lot of times with black people not having, most of us being first generation business owner, it's a lot of on-the-job training. And I would submit to you that some of the closings with African-American business, it's going to be because they lack the business acumen to run a successful business. I won't just put it totally on black. You know, from the way the service, from the setup, to even how they understand their money. Knowing what your debt to income ratio is, having a relationship with a banker to keep you in line. Those things, paying out more than what you're taking in because you don't understand your numbers. Living out of the business funds for your personal.
And that's what another young lady mentioned earlier. They were $1 million organization, but they wanted to live in $1 million house.
Can't do it.
Right.
And then being unfriendly to IRS, get you out of business quickly.
Yes.
So it's not always just being black, it's do you know how to run a business?
Right.
Well, I think that's totally the baseline. You've got to be able to run your business, understand the numbers, and many people who get into business, they get into it, as you say, because you can make, what do you call, finger rolls? Or you can make a good cupcake, so you want to be in the cupcake business, but you don't pay your sales tax, you don't pay your payroll taxes, you don't want to be dealing with the administrative side. Well, you got to deal with the administrative side, even before IRS gets to you. Sales tax people will get to you. They'll come in and close you down. But in terms of getting to your question, I'll talk from some personal experience. At one time, I owned 10 stores here, and I still am the largest franchisee in the Lenny's system with 8 stores. I've got one for sale now. But I never made it a point to be the face of my organization. I have a director of operations who is a lot lighter than I am. He's white. And he runs the operations, and it's not necessarily on purpose. I'm remodeling the store over at Cooper now, and I'm in that store almost every day. And people look at me, and I'm sometimes uncomfortable saying, yes, I own this store. I just kind of, I just don't deal with it because I have seen, and I believe, I can't prove it, I believe I've seen a difference in my business when people know who owns the store. So to your point, I think that could be the case. But regardless, though, we run the store as a strong business in a business-like way with the service that you would expect to get from anybody. They should not come in my store and be able to say, oh, well, this store is owned by Edith versus the store is owned by somebody else. And that's what I tell my employees all the time. And then a prime example is our Whitehaven store. And I'll get all the time, well, the customers are different there. And I said, I don't care what the customers are. We're a professional organization, and we're going to run that store, and we're going to put money in that store just like we do any other store. But you do have a point. You just kind of have to deal with that based on the circumstances, but never let that stand in the way of doing the right and the best job that you can do, the professional job, because they should not be able to differentiate based on service or anything like that. But you're always going to have, but you can also have some people who look like us who won't come to your store because of how you look. Jealousy, envy, all kinds of things are out there. So I wouldn't take it personally. It's just kind of the fact of life for our generation right now.
I appreciate everything you guys said.
And I just said, I'm not a business owner, but, who I want coming through the door is somebody who is green. Bottom line is. But, as was said, sometimes we fail because we don't have the background. And then sometimes what I tell people is they may come to me and say, I'm interested in opening a franchise and I want to do it now. Sometimes now isn't best. I would rather someone take their time and do it 2 or 3 years from now and do it right than to jump in and not really be prepared. And part of preparation may mean that of course, you come to conferences like this. IFA, we have 3 major expos a year. But I would really start right in my local area, whether you have a small business development center, and take classes through them, that will help you to have an understanding of a business background. Now, of course, again, when you go into franchising, you don't necessarily have to have a background in that area. In many cases, they don't want you to have a background in that particular area. And I'll use tax preparation as an example. Some people who may be a CPA and they've been, that sometimes they make the worst franchisees in a tax preparation because they're coming with their preconceived, this is how you do it. Whereas the franchisor wants to teach you their method of having to do it. And, if you think you can do it better, then you go ahead and do it as an independent person. But sometimes taking the time to take simple business classes. Some people have never seen a profit and loss statement. They don't know how to run a business, so doing that to prepare. I also say that take time to make sure that you are financially prepared, whether that means paying off credit card debt so that when you go into this, you go in debt-free. You may want to purchase additional life insurance to have that. If you are, and I know I'm getting ready to get off the subject, if you're a husband and wife and you both want to get into franchising, we would encourage one of you to keep your full-time job. Because especially if you have to get a loan, the bank wants to be able to see that if this business, the first couple of months or years or whatever, you may not be making any money. They want to be sure that somebody has some income coming in so that they can get paid back. So just be ready to, take time to prepare so that you are in the best position possible when you're sitting across from that franchisor or that lender.
Ms. Moderator, I know you have a list of questions that you want to get through before this hour is up, but I'm just interested. Can I take 2 minutes?
Sure.
All right, so you guys decided to sit in on this particular panel discussion. So somebody out there is thinking about opening up a business. Kind of tell me, what did you think about opening up, and why are you thinking about opening up that particular business? Anybody? We're a small group. Don't be, we're a small group.
In fact, it would be good if those two in the back just moved up a little closer so we could be more intimate.
Right.
Bring us up here. Come on up.
That's a small group. You guys want us to come down, we can make a circle and just start chatting. This is too formal.
We're all family.
We're like joining the church, right?
Yeah.
Come on down.
What was you saying?
They still need to hear. Okay.
My name is Sherry. Actually, a couple of years ago, I had looked into starting or hopefully starting a Lenny's franchise. I love Lenny's, first of all, and I kind of felt like that was a bad idea. Probably eat up all the profit. But when I looked into it, the amount that I would have to contribute, they said it was $25,000. So
Franchise fee.
yeah, the franchise fee to get into that. What I could not get through, what did that entail? And it may have been the person that I was talking to. Because I've had a couple of businesses. I've done Avon, where I was very successful in doing that, and I also did website design. But I had to take a couple of years off, so now I'm trying to get back into doing something for me instead of working for other people. Came out of FedEx in 2003 after 18 years. So the Lenny's sub thing, it was really one of the top franchises that I had considered. But if I'm gonna have to borrow this money, what am I gonna be getting for my $25,000? You know what I'm saying?
Well, first of all, it's going to be a heck of a lot more than $25,000 to get into Lenny's.
Well,
That's
this
just the
was-
franchise fee.
Yeah, this was several years ago when it was before I left FedEx.
Yeah, but that was still just a franchise fee, because you've also got to find your location, you've got to finance the building.
Okay, see, they didn't tell me all that. They were
Okay.
just saying in order to get into it, it'll be $25,000.
That is going to get into the door, and I think Miriam can probably give you a better idea of what franchise fees entail in more specificity, but we can come back and talk about other costs if you want, but I think you probably know more about exactly what that's been being.
I mean, that initial franchise fee is really for their support of you. It really is to support you, whether your training may be included in that. marketing, well, initial marketing, because then you also need to look at the royalties. Because some people think, okay, I'm gonna pay this franchise fee, this initial franchise fee, and that's it. No, that's just the beginning. You will pay royalties, and royalties can be anywhere between 3 and maybe 12%.
They're 8% for Lenny. Well, 6% royalties, 2% marketing, total of 8%.
Right, and then some have a separate advertising fee. So you need to be, clear at what it is, and obviously they weren't as clear with you in terms of what that $25,000 would entail. So they need to be able to support you, and the training and all of part of that comes into that, well, most of the time, when Discovery Day, that will be on you to pay to go. That's when they bring the candidates that are, have expressed interest. They've gone through the process, and they know that you're serious, and you're about to sign on the dotted line. They will bring you to Discovery Day, and you will meet at the headquarters, and you meet all of the people that you will come in contact with. But that initial $25,000 or whatever the fee is really is just to support you initially. And again, there will be the royalties and whatever fee, whether you have to purchase a building or the like. It really could vary.
Now, what's your name again?
Sherry.
Sherry. So why did you choose to do Lenny's? All the franchising opportunity, what was it that drove you towards Lenny's?
I would say brand. The experiences that I've had with people that I've known, even with FedEx, we had a lot of our meetings. They hosted a lot of our conferences and meetings and stuff, and it was just the professionalism of the staff. And when you're looking for a caterer or something like that for big groups of people, and I mean, it was just one of the ones that
So does this line up with your passion? Are you passionate about having
At the time I was. But
Okay, things change.
Yeah, well, see, nobody could explain to me what, and I was considering taking it out of my retirement, my 401k. I was going to take this money out and put it toward a franchise, because that's what everybody kept saying. You need to, African Americans need to get more into doing franchises. And so when I came out of FedEx in 2003, that was what I had considered doing. But nobody could tell me what all this $25,000 was.
Okay, so when you say nobody, how many people did you challenge to give you the answers?
I spoke to 3 different people within, well, I don't know how far they were within Lenny's, and I was told that they were with Lenny's. But nobody said anything about any royalties or any additional fees. My thinking is, okay, this $25,000 is going to get me into the organization, and they're going to give me the building and set me. But I never could get that in writing. Nobody never would specify that.
Okay, now don't take this personally. They save you probably $25,000, because when you go into business for yourself, if you ever sit around and wait on somebody to give you something or do something, you're going to always be behind. Let me tell you. You have to be the one who drives and get what you want. You have to figure out, because there's going to be some doors shut. That's what separate business owners from employees. The business owners are willing to go that extra mile. So when you didn't get that information, your internal drive got to keep pushing forward to get what you want, because ultimately you want to open those doors. And never is it ever going to be easy just to walk up and open up any type of business, franchise, whatever you want to
I
be.
understand that, but it was easy enough for them to tell me I was going to put $25,000 up front.
Okay.
So if I'm going to do that, that's all fine and good, but what's my next step? Where am I going from here? Because I can do the profit and loss, I can do all that.
Oh, so once you got the doors open, then you say, so now how do I sell this food?
No,
So now how
I'm
to
not
master
selling
employee?
food.
Okay.
But my thing is, I needed an explanation. I don't care if somebody gonna come and ask me to loan them $100. I want to know what you're gonna do with my money, when I'm gonna get it.
Sherry, actually, I think that information, I don't know, about 12 years ago, but it's certainly probably on the website now. But if you think about it, nobody could use the Lenny's brand. The $25,000 probably goes as much as anything as giving you permission to use that name. Now, there are other things behind that name, it comes with that, but you couldn't go out and just hang out a Lenny's sub. So that's, the initial thing is giving you permission to use that name, or permission to use McDonald's name, or to use State Farm. I don't know if they have fees or what, but, so for the crux of, that's probably most of what that was for. But there is training. I mean, they're going to train you on how to run a business. But beyond the training, they're not going to give you any equipment. They're not going to pay your lease amount, or buy a building for you. They're not going to hire the employees. They're not going to buy your uniforms. So pretty much, it's permission to use a trademarked name. So to get you in the door. And then that's when the other hundreds of thousands of dollars come around.
My man here, what is it you want to do?
I'm coming from a different angle.
Okay.
I'm actually a business consultant in strategic management, where I work with small to medium-sized businesses. And my question will probably be more for Ms. Bauer? Brewer, sorry. But does the IFA have a department or division that works when a small company has a product or a service and they're ready, their business system and their product is ready to move towards a franchising opportunity? Do they have one to prepare that small business to turn it into a franchise?
That's an excellent question. We have members that is what they specialize in, helping individuals take their independent business, help them set it up to franchise. I was talking to someone, I think 2 days ago, and they were talking about franchising their business. And the first question I asked, I'm like, okay, well, what about your operations manual? I don't have an operations manual. Do you have more than one location? No, I only have one location. How long have you been in business? I've been in business a year. If you've only been in business for a year, you don't even need to be thinking about franchising. You still, like they used to say, wet behind the ears. I would not encourage anyone to think about franchising their business until they've been in business at least 3 to 5 years. Also, you need to make sure that you have at least another location, because if you just had that one location, you don't have a second location. How do you know that you can support a second location? Also, what staff do you have? Because now you're going to have people who are knowledgeable in franchise development. You're going to have marketing people and a whole lot of other people. Are you financially set where you can hire those people? So those are just some of the preliminary things that people need to think about. But yes, we do have member companies that, and IFA, we are a membership organization. We do represent the franchisor, the franchisee, and supplier members. And supplier members would be our franchise coaches, attorneys, people who specialize in marketing or the like. And that's some of our member companies, that's all they do is help people take their business, structure it so that it can be franchised. And it's not something that is inexpensive to do. Sometimes people try to take shortcuts, and as an example, and not so much someone who's trying to franchise their business, but someone, when you get that franchise disclosure document, or any of the other things, we strongly encourage you to work with a franchise attorney, because all attorneys are not created equal. Now, you may think, well, it's a contract, so all contracts, if you don't understand franchise law, and you decide that I'm going to go with my cousin's brother's attorney that helped me buy my house, or my friend's cousin's brother who helped me get a divorce or whatever, you're going to wind up spending twice as much money, because more than likely they're not going to set it up right, and then you're going to have to hire someone to do it right. So again, the long answer to your question, or the short answer to your question is, yes, we do have members that will help you take your company, structure it so that you can franchise it and do it right.
All right.
I want to know what she's doing.
Yeah, she's been taking good notes. I want to know as well.
She got a lot of notes.
Yeah.
Come on,
I've
Santa.
been taking notes, but
I've been looking into franchise business, and, you know, there are a lot of different franchises. Like you say, they may start with $500 or $250,000. To get started, you know, you can put your name on the line and they'll start calling you. Is that a way that they should call you, or you call them in regards to wanting to be a part of their franchise? I had a situation where, you know, I was looking at a list of franchise. Okay, I done selected one that said $500. I just put my name and filled out the information. I started getting calls and calls and calls in regard to that, and I was like, that sounds kind of strange to me, for them to, you know, continue to call me as to, you know, and I know I put my information out there, but I really wasn't expecting them to call. I wanted an email first, you know, so I can read some information regarding them, but instead I got a call. So to me, it makes you feel like it's uncomfortable, to me, the way they set it up for them to call. So is that something that franchise?
Well, yes and no. I mean, you know, one person is complaining because they didn't get a call. Now somebody's complaining that they did get a call.
And it was just kind of nerve-wracking as to how they were trying to approach.
Okay, and I don't know of any franchise, and maybe you just threw the number $500 out there. I don't know of any franchise where you can get in for $500. I would be very skeptical. You know, that phrase, you get what you pay for. And more than likely, it may have been a business opportunity, which is different from a franchise. So they were trying to help you in terms of, you put out there that you wanted information. They call, so I don't know if did you ever have a conversation with them, or have you been ignoring their calls because they called you?
Pretty much ignored them because
Okay.
of the fact that
But they're
I
going to keep.
wanted something in writing from them, more so email.
But-
Send me an email, let me read it, and then let me feel, you know, a little comfort.
Right,
And
but
then
how-
I would take the next step of contacting them.
I understand, but how would they know that until you have a conversation? So you know, if they call you again, you know, after the 13th call, they may decide that, you know, maybe she doesn't like me. But, you know, I would have a conversation with them, you know, to say, yes, I was trying to, you know, get some information. Can you send me information, or where on your website can I get information? Because most reputable companies, you can find a whole lot of stuff on websites. With the internet now, you know, sometimes the internet can be your best friend, sometimes it may not be, but you could do a lot of legwork by going on the internet. So I would at least be professional and call them back so that you can have that conversation with them and say, okay, you know, because they want to make sure that you're serious, and so you need to have a conversation. Just.
But when you have something, I mean, it wasn't like a Lenny's brand or something, it was just, you know, the company you hadn't heard of. And
Was it a hot tamale stand?
something of that.
I have another question. Can someone tell me, what do you think the day, just an ordinary working day, is like for a business owner? What are some of the things you think that business owner may deal with during the course of a day?
Well, we know it's not an 8-hour day.
Say again?
I said, I know it's not an 8-hour day.
Okay.
Right. I'm surprised you're sitting on this podium talking. Because you know, when I go home, I go home. And if you had your own business, it's not that way. It's still answering phone calls, answering emails. I mean, it's constant. I want to go to sleep when I want to go to sleep. You don't want to bother me, but I don't think that's going to happen if you have your own business.
Tell us about you. What do you have your own business? You want to have your own business? What do you do now?
Me?
Yes.
I want my own business.
Okay.
And I don't know. You know, when I think of the strife that you have to go through, and I know at the end it's going to be, it'll pay off, But me personally, I'm thinking, do I have the aspiration and the skills, but do I have the energy? That's the only thing that's holding me back.
And what I would suggest is, because I'm not sure what franchises you are interested, or whatever business that you're interested in doing, but I think you may benefit from working with a reputable franchise coach, and that's anybody in the room, to help you look at, okay, what is your background? Where do you want to be 5, 10 years from now? And they will identify franchises that may fit into what you're looking for. But again, it's going to be on you to make the phone calls and to talk with them. But and I just lost my thought right there.
But-
While she's getting a thought back,
Yeah.
what area, what do you look at? You say you have the skills, which area?
Which area?
What would you want to have your business, what kind of business would you want to have?
Franchise-wise, I thought of Dunkin' Donuts, franchise-wise. I mean, but that would be where my skill lays. My skill would lay in order of dealing with a person on an individual basis.
Counseling, is that what?
Community counseling, communication, life skill coach.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're very smart, you did right.
And you know, even I was talking about you benefiting from working with a franchise coach. Maybe since you have some life skill training or interest, you could become a franchise coach. So that's something that you could look at. So again, you may start off working with the franchise coach to see what works best for you, but then you can become a franchise coach as well.
Young lady on the front row, what's your business interest? No, I'm sorry. What do you think the typical day is like for a business
I'm a
owner?
business owner.
Talk to me then.
So typical day is getting in, opening up, because I'm in there alone. So I have to open up my business, respond to emails, answer telephone, then wrap my mind around creating whatever it is that a customer might need. If they need a flyer for today or an invitation for today, and then print that out and then ensure that that gets to the customer. Are they going to pick it up, or do I need to deliver it? Making sure that the mail is done. On Fridays, making sure that I clean up the office, because I don't like to walk in on Monday morning and it's not straightened out. So I'm the janitor. You know,
exactly right.
everything.
Yeah.
Making sure by the 20th of the month that my sales taxes are paid, so they won't come shut my doors down. So all of that.
You
a
have any
printing
employees?
business?
No employees
Oh,
as of
good.
yet.
Okay.
Your business is printing?
Yes, ma'am. Printing and graphics. Yes, ma'am.
I need a
So-
printer and a graphics person.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here. All right.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, respond to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've actually considered franchising, maybe looking at a UPS store, because they do some of the same things that I do. And then I've thought about it, so, well, you just hold off, because you may be able to franchise your own business and do it that way. So we'll see.
Okay.
And we got the lady right behind you?
Who we get?
Ma'am, did you have a question?
No, right next
I'm
to.
sorry. Yeah, you've been here. Come on up. There we go.
Wait, I wasn't prepared. Well, I make my own body butters and lotions, and I like to start my own business, which is why I'm here today. Eventually franchising, so I'm just here to learn.
Okay.
And that's it.
What in particular you want to learn? What is it?
Just strategies and tips and tricks on how to get the business started, and like locations, like if I do get a building, like where to go, and just gaining the knowledge of everything.
Have you started with a business plan?
I've been looking into it. I've been to the Small Business Association.
Absolutely.
And I've been speaking with, different counselors, and we had a meeting about going to a CPA and attorneys, and it's everything, just learning. So it's a lot.
Provider, LLC.
Right, how to set up your business.
I've learned a lot today.
Me too.
All right, so can you imagine starting a business and not having that knowledge? That's what we talked about earlier. That's one of the reasons why business fail.
Right.
Because you go in to do your trade or your passion, but you don't understand the business. Absolutely.
What are you doing with the body butters that you're making now?
I give them to friends and family, and I keep
RS is not in the room. You can tell us you sell it.
I'm still starting out, so
I wanted to get on the friends and family list.
And so, like, when I meet people, or like, we came out of the restroom earlier, and I was like, oh, well, I have this lotion, you should try it. So just to get feedback on it, because I am making a product. So when I do launch it, I want it to be good, and I would already have good feedback. So I'm still in that early stage of it.
See, I think you ought to develop a plan to get to the point of opening a business. Because it seems like you're getting pieces here, pieces there, but not necessarily purposely. That is, I know I've got to know finance. I know I've got to know a little bit about legal. I've got to know a little bit about payroll. Developing a plan that says, this is what it takes for me to get from first grade to a senior to opening a business, and making sure you specifically do those things, you experience those learnings to get you to that point. Otherwise, it's random, and you don't know what you don't know, and you may miss something. And there are books out there that tell you how to open businesses, what the steps are, what the plans, how you can get from where you are now to the point of making a decision, because you may get there and decide this is really not what I want to do. And when I talk to people about franchising or any business, and by the way, I have a couple of other businesses that are not franchised, a burger place, and actually Sam Adams Bar out in the airport. So I've got it from both sides. And I'll tell you one thing about not being a franchisee is that 8% royalty in marketing. However, having been a franchisee, much of what I've already learned at Lenny's, I apply to my businesses, because it is a structure and it's a plan that is already in place. Whereas when you're opening your business, to some extent now, you are trying to figure it out. A franchise would guide you in that direction for the most part. I mean, it would help you with the finance. It would help you with the things that you don't know. But it costs. You have to pay for that.
Right.
I know being involved with franchising, did you have family members to participate with you? Ms. Green, such as with your Lenny's, were your family members involved with you?
Well, I tell you, my daughter was the one who got me involved in that. Now, my daughter's a doctor, and she's not going to make another sandwich probably in her life, so she's no longer involved with it. But my son is still involved with the business. So it's he and I, and we have a director of operations that I mentioned earlier. So it's my son and me, and I'm really trying to be uninvolved, because really I retired 12 years ago, and I really did not retire to do anything else. But on the other hand, it does keep me connected to what's going on in the business world. And most of our employees are young people, although we do have some older employees who really have this job making minimum wage primarily, and that's how they support themselves. So I also see it as sort of a contribution back to the community, because some of these people would not have jobs. I mean, we do hire people who have records. We give people, I was talking to my operations guy the other day, about being lenient, about giving people second chances. I had a little guy in my store over there, he's 20 years old, shows up late, he's getting ready to leave today, and I said, okay, I'm not going to have to talk to you again about being late, am I? But to some extent, we're training people, because they're not going to necessarily be able to get another job. They make a mistake at this first job, they're going to be terminated. And also trying to create a vision for these young people that I can manage a store, I can own a Lenny's, I can own several Lenny's, because a lot of the people, they have no vision that they can do anything other than make minimum wage and do probably what their parents have done, or they just can't see a bigger picture, a bigger opportunity for them. So in my case, a lot of what I'm doing, hopefully, is creating opportunities and encouraging folks and letting them see that I can pay my own bills and pay taxes and do things that normal citizens should do. But my son is involved in the business. He's the one that's my partner in the business. But I will say, if he were a non-son, I probably would have fired him 10 times by now.
Yeah. So let me add one thing to that. The other side to that coin, I practice not hiring family and friends, because if they're not performing and you don't have the courage or the guts to fire them, it's going to cost you money. Okay? So I was told that years ago, and I think it's true. I tried to hire a friend, and the most difficult conversation I had to have was to tell him that, you know, I like you, we good, but you got to go. You don't have to go home.
Okay, well, let me add to that. You know, an interesting conversation I had right at my meeting before I came here. My grandson was working for one of my stores, and the manager came up there, and I said, Lisa, I thought you fired Richard, because I saw I get the daily reports, and Richard's name was on one of them. And I said, I thought you told me 3 weeks ago you were going to fire Richard. That's my grandson. So she explained, because she called and told me she was, and I said, well, that's fine. But on the other, she didn't fire him. I guess they worked it out. But it would have been fine if she had, because he has to learn. But on the other hand, I know in my life at FedEx how many of my peers hired their friends and made a way for their friends, created an opening for their friends, even when it meant that I didn't get the job because they were friends. And so whenever I see someone who's in a position that can say, I'm going to add a point to you, I'm going to get your name in front of someone, or I'm going to hire you, even though, and I'm in a different situation. I'm talking about young kids making minimum wage, because I could easily fire. I mean, I don't have a problem firing them, except my son. But I'm just thankful to be in that position that I can create opportunities. I do have friends calling me fairly frequently. Well, I've got, you know, my son, I've got my nephew, and we'll interview them. And if they're off the wall completely, we won't hire them. But I'll give people a chance. We have a very high turnover rate anyway. I prefer not having that, but I'll give people a chance. I've been blessed to be in a situation where I can give people chances, and if they don't work out, it's not going to be the end of the world for me. And I won't have invested, because you have to invest a lot in training for your people too.
Absolutely. But
I have seen it. We've all seen it all our lives, where most of the time we've not been in that position, and we've seen other people be able to make a way for somebody who we knew didn't deserve it anymore, or probably even less than we did. So that's one of the benefits of having this business. And as I said, I retired already. I'm not in this to pay my utility bill. I wanted to create a legacy and create opportunities for some other people.
And I just want to say, if each of us who had a business, if each of us hired one person, we would not have unemployment, especially in the African American community. But also, you do have to make sure that you hire the right people.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be the face of your business.
Right.
And I tell people, don't hire someone just because they have a pulse.
Right.
Because I have gone into businesses, and I'm standing there waiting to be waited on, and then I have to hear the conversation about what they did last night, or they didn't want to come to work, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why are you here? So that it's one of those things where you want to help people, but you also have to protect your business and that brand, because we all know that if we get bad service, we're going to go tell 10 people. Mm-hmm. If we get good service, we may tell 3 people, but we're going to tell about the bad service more. So make sure that you hire good people who are going to be representative of you and your brand.
And be prepared to train, to invest in training, and to train them well, because they do represent you. And to the lady that was in the back, if you get bad service, particularly if you get bad service from one of our businesses, the word seems to fly a lot faster than it might otherwise fly.
No, I've always got excellent service. I love it when they come from around the corner looking at things too. I'm like, what do you come from? Oh, this is thank you. I don't know if it's just that person or that particular location, but I've always got excellent service.
And it just, again, going back to customer service, now with social media, I mean, it explodes. Before you can do anything, someone has sent a tweet or whatever, and that can be, the difference between you being successful. So again, make sure that you get as much training, that you invest in the training of your employees, and that you know your business. Because all too often, I tell people, if you know your business, you should know how much is coming in, whether you're there or not. People can only rip you off when you don't know your business.
Don't know your numbers.
Because they're putting $1 in the till for you, $1 for me, and that's because they know that, they're not paying any attention. So you have to know your business front and back, and be willing to teach them so that they become vested, and people who are vested are not going, they're going to protect you and make sure that they're doing the right thing.
I think you had another question there.
I do have another question.
All right.
Also, with your franchise, does the franchise business give you the opportunity to give back to the community, such as, like, they want to set up a scholarship fund for employees that have been there? Is that something that the franchise company would offer, or would that be something that the individual franchisee could offer?
We actually, for the last 3 days, last 3 years, we've been doing at our annual convention an event called Franchising Gives Back. And at our convention, that we usually have maybe, and I think they limit it to 125 people. The first day, well, before the convention actually opens up, they go on site to an event, to a site, and they do some volunteer work. So in February of this year, we officially launched Franchising Gives Back, because many of our member companies give hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars donating to the community. Because the one thing is, if you want the community to support you, you got to support the community. You have to be visible. And so many of our member companies, support the Little League. They support, if you want to have an event, a fundraiser where 10%, if you have people come in between the hours of 5 and 10 that night, that 20% of the proceeds will go to that particular entity. So yes, giving back is very important to I would say 90% of our franchise companies, and it's actually encouraged.
Well, as a franchisee, I think that's up to you what you want to do, but we try and support the community. The 10% thing she talked about, we're doing something at our store at Overton Square. I think it's Saturday or next Saturday. The 10% of our sales on that Saturday will go to a literacy organization that's going to be doing something in the square. And education is one of my personal preferences in terms of charities, so I'm all for that. But the other thing you'll get, if you're in the food business, you're going to constantly get requests for donations for food. And so we have to pick and choose, and you really do, because you can't give your business away. And I always look at, do these people order from me? Does this church order from me when they're paying? And so when they're not paying and they're asking for a donation, sometimes we donate, oftentimes we'll just give a percentage discount, but something that is a donation to charity. But that's up to you on what you do with your business there. But you'd want to be ingrained in the community because those are your customers.
And another thing, in terms of, you mentioned scholarship, and Edith mentioned scholarships. For about 10 years, PepsiCo Foundation and Marriott Foundation have given us money for a scholarship. And we got the last of the funds last year, and they gave us another pot of money. Each year I would give $15,000 in scholarships and $12,000 for scholarships. And the wonderful thing about PepsiCo and Marriott, it was for students who are in college, so they could get a $4,000 or a $3,000 scholarship. They never asked me to let me review the applications. It was all my decision. The heartbreaking thing was some of our kids cannot write. It was just a simple application and an essay of 500 words or less. When your first sentence is full of grammatical errors or doesn't make sense, it's kind of hard for me to say, I'm going to give you $3,000. So we do have another pot of money that we will be distributing. We launched a new program called Next Gen in Franchising, where we are trying to reach out to high school and college students to educate them about opportunities in franchising, whether they, because we also understand that if you're initially graduating from college, most of them will not have the funds to purchase a franchise, but they may want to go work for a franchise company, or because of their business or their background, they may become a supplier to a franchise. And again, we do offer scholarships. So, and again, my pot of money was earmarked for minorities only. And, I have enjoyed giving $500,000 in scholarship money to deserving students. We did have one scholarship that was $4,000 that we could not give the money away. I talked to a young person who was in law school, and I said, well, I will extend the deadline. Because they said, well, I'm getting ready to take finals. I said, okay, I will extend the deadline. After you finish your finals, send me your package. I said, because right now, I have $4,000. You're the only person who is submitted. Do you think I ever got that money, that package from them? I talked to someone, and they said, well, $4,000 isn't a lot of money. I said, it must be generational, because you get $4,000 here, $2,000 here, $1,000 there. That adds up, and I've never seen anybody to turn money. And so I literally, we had to turn the money back to the law firm, because for three straight years I could not give that money away.
All right, we have a question in the back.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
My name is Destiny Cox, originally from Memphis. I came in on the last part, but my business has been beauty, and now the last 10 years has shifted to education within the beauty industry. What I do a lot of trade shows and a lot of freelancing for manufacturer companies. But now I've had so many individuals within those classrooms want continuing education that I want to start an academy. And I'm looking for a business model and a structure how to do that that's not really associated to beauty salons, but something on the form of like tutoring centers. And I know it's bigger than just going in and showing somebody something in the salon. So I want to know if you guys have any advice or any direction or any structural suggestions, models that I could look at.
Wouldn't it be maybe the charter schools? Would that be similar? You're trying to create an educational facility? Is that what I understand?
An advanced training educational facility that's not necessarily a beauty school,
Right.
but these individuals are already professionals that's looking to enhance their career. And I do this across the country, and it's a need, but I'm trying to put it together.
See if this similar. In our industry, every year we are required to take so many hours of continuing education. So to do that, we go to a local facility here and he has this classroom setting that will give us the courses we need to keep our license valid. So I don't know, because everything you're saying, it seems like it's telling me it's going to fall back to being in some type of academic or educational environment. It's just for a higher learning.
Yes. Right now, I'm certified in 3 states to offer the continuing education. And so what I do for, just say a popular company like Matrix Hair Products, since I'm certified to offer that, they may have a training already set up in Florida. I go out there and we'll certify 300 people. But how do I do it for myself? That's what I'm trying to,
Why do you not want to be associated with a beauty school? Excuse me.
Oh, well, right now, I'm in the process of just transitioning from always freelancing and traveling all the time, and my background is in the beauty schools. How did I get started? Doing what I do now? It's nobody but God. I actually started teaching on a dare. when I was 18 years old, I got my cosmetology license, and 19, one of the instructors took me and just showed me everything, and from there, I just specialized in everything that I do, and stepped out on faith, and there you go. But now I do a lot of traveling. I work for product companies, but I just want to offer that education myself. And a lot of my peers offer it in styling academies, but I know it's bigger than that. It's not always about the style. It's big. There's a science behind it.
So if I were a cosmetologist, I would come to you perhaps once a year and find out the latest thing that's going on in cosmetology? Is that the way?
Yes, throughout the year.
Throughout, well, at any point, during
Yes.
the year, I could come, and you would be offering courses, say, on the latest hairstyle. I'm sorry, I'm pretty basic.
Yes,
Hairstyle,
mainly
whatever. Okay.
cutting. My cores are cutting and coloring, and for most African Americans, that's a weaker point in their career. And so I will go out, I seek information and bring it back and structure it to where they can understand it, creating lesson plans and things of that nature for that.
Well, it sounds like a much longer conversation, but I can see your vision. But you are talking about having a structure, having a facility, having equipment, I assume where you could train people on when they would come in.
Right now, it is so simple, and it's not really complex, that it could really be done online. The online training, just like a school or university.
You could train to cut hair online?
Yes, procedure for mathematical and visual learners. Yeah, webinars and things like that.
Okay.
But
Well,
right
that would
now,
be ideal, because that would be save you a lot of money, and you can make a lot more money. You'd have no, overhead or infrastructure.
a laptop. But I travel a lot and I enjoy what I do, but I want to do it. It just, to me, have you ever just felt like it was bigger than what you see and what you're doing right now? And I want to kind of, put that into something where it can grow.
Do you have a business plan?
The business plan I originally had was not for this, but it was more so for salon and training, and I've already X'd that out. So I guess I do have to go back and start over with this vision.
Could a franchise coach help her? Not that she's trying to franchise, but, or even a small business?
I would say that the Small Business Development Center, in terms of starting with the business plan to help you be a little more focused in terms of what it is that you want to do. Because right now, it seems as though it's all up here. It's not on paper. So I'm really having, for me, I'm having a hard time really visualizing what it is that you want to do. But until you put it on paper, and then you can talk to someone, and they could, or maybe your model is the different educational schools that are out here, whether it's Goddard or whatever, that they may have a model that is similar to what it is that you're trying to do, but you need to put it on paper.
Unless I missed something, it seems to me that you can partner with some of the local business colleges, barber colleges, and just bring your clientele in, rent space or whatever, and bring your clientele in to do your particular training, absent of their training. So it's like a college and a high school. Your clients will come in for the CE training because you got everything in place that you need. The structure's already there. If you can work out a deal where you can rent space instead of having to take on those expenses, I think that'll pretty much help you out. They got the infrastructure already in place for you.
But I thought you didn't want to be associated with the college. But I like your idea about doing it on the internet. If you could do it on the internet, because then people don't have to travel, they don't have to spend the money, and that would be great.
But you're going to have I don't know what the percentage, you're going to have some people would kind of get away, because most people in that industry, correct me if I'm wrong, going to be hands-on people.
Most are hands-on, a lot of product knowledge.
Yep.
Courses I do is not hands-on.
Okay.
And it's similar, when he introduced me, he said, I'm a CFE, which stands for I'm a Certified Franchise Executive. And I had to take 3,500 hours of classwork to become a CFE. We have classes, we offer classes during our convention, different summits that we have, and then I was able to do probably about 5 or 6 classes online so that I could finish, because even though I work for IFA, I'm like, oh my God, when am I ever going to finish this 3,500 hours? But being able to do a combination of online, and in person was the way to go, and so that may be what you need to do.
And there are webinars too, which are, live back and forth, so there are different ways you can do it, but, and in this generation of millennials,
Yes.
this would not be foreign to them at all.
Right. And I was doing a webinar last night while I was in my hotel room.
Watching the Grizzlies.
Which I was trying to go see the Grizzlies, but I had to do a webinar.
I thought you did both.
All right, well, looks like we're just about out of time now, but I do appreciate, I'm sure the panelists also appreciate all the participation. We had 100% participation, which is very, very good. And I'd just like any closing remarks for any of the panelists, for the participants, just to some advice, guidance, or any motivational message you'd like to leave them with.
Just stay in your passion.
I think there's a lot of research you can do on your own, and I look at it and fitness, for example. You mentioned you didn't know if you had the stamina. Fitness is terribly important. You've got to make sure you're fit to do it, that you're willing to put in the hours and to do the work. Make sure your finances are in order, as Miriam was saying earlier. And then I would just throw faith in there, because it can get lonely when you're in there doing your own business, when you either brought in a friend and the friend fails you, or your family fails you, or you got to fire them, or you got to terminate them, or you're trying to figure out how am I going to pay my next bill. So make sure your faith is strong and you know you're committed to getting there, and you believe that God will get you there. So I would focus on fitness, finances, faith, and I got some others too, but I don't have time for that. So good luck to everybody.
I would just close out by saying, again, do as much homework as you can. I can give you my business card, and I'm willing to send you a copy of our Franchise Opportunities Guide, which is pretty much our membership directory that includes our 1,200 different members, contact information, their website, so even if you don't go into franchising, you may be able to get some ideas about what other companies are doing by going online. I would also encourage you that if you really want to go into business for yourself, that you start paying particular attention to laws and ordinances that are in your particular city, and that you become very close to the city's economic development office, because these can be your best friends. They can help you, but pay attention to laws. As an example, as an individual, you may believe that everyone in the United States should have health care. As a business owner, and if you have to pay for it, you may think a little differently. So you need to start getting in tune with what laws are out there that may impact you as a small business owner, and you need to do it before you become a business owner, because at that point, it may be too late.
Very good. All right, well, I think they deserve a round of applause. And that will conclude our franchising. Oh, one more question. I'm sorry.
Even though it was few of us in here than all the other sessions,
Yes.
I think this was superseded them all.
Very good. You should take a bow, panelists. You should take a bow. Thank you all for your participation as well.
Yes.
All righty.